Sarah, I can talk just a bit about CANMaPP and what we'd like to do with it. I assume most people on this call had some exposure to it, and it's a functional product. I don't want to imply that we've given you trainings and having a Q&A on an unfinished product. We do have plans to try and to grow the tool and evolve its functionality that, like its development, was dependent upon funding. And so we haven't had the right opportunity. But where we ultimately want to take the tool is to kind of fully automate the process of nutrient management plan, oversight, development, and certification. So the tool that's on there now can walk you through some of those key steps. It does require you to have a 590 spreadsheet related to a plan to kind of enter the system. And once you have that, you can kind of do whatever you want with the plan within the system. But our hope is that a subsequent version would allow a user to start the nutrient management plan development process within the system, communicate directly with NRCS throughout various stages on the process, and have the system kind of serve as a gateway or a meeting place between a producer, NMP plan developer, and NRCS, where they can ask questions. NRCS can review plans, certify plans, all in one place. So that's where we're hoping to take it. That functionality isn't there now, but we proposed it in a previous state level CIG grant with NRCS, but the state decided not to offer CIG that year. Unfortunately, they announced that after we'd already submitted the proposals. So we're sitting on it and just waiting for when they open that back up, and we can submit it again.
So that brings up something. I recognize a couple people as MAPE technicians here, and just wondering if they envision using this as part of their day-to-day work, and working with people to create nutrient management plans, and like what your experiences with 590s have been, and kind of getting some information maybe from the other end of it, might be helpful. If they're there at all. I don't know. I know Sarah.
A common question that we would get in our initial meetings with potential users doing our user needs assessment in the development was, what are they using, if anything? Because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, and we didn't just want to offer a free version of something that other companies have put a lot of resources into, but we did want to provide something that could be useful and would be free and might be something that would be accessible to producers or technicians who weren't using anything in particular. And so the most common response we got was the 590 spreadsheet is what people were utilizing. And so that was the reason that we opted to go that route. Most people who are using something more sophisticated, they're comfortable with that, and we weren't looking to, pry people off of that. But for people who weren't, who are looking for some assistance in documentation, would be open to perhaps moving nutrient management into some online platform. The 590 spreadsheet seemed to be the most commonly used tool, the easiest way for us to try and engage that particular user group. And again, our hope is to not be limited in just that regard and allow people to start the process from scratch in a subsequent version. But that's how we ended up on the 590 as the entry ticket.
I see. Yeah, when I was a technician, I did a lot of 590s. So I totally understand that. And it would be nice to have a way to digitize those maps and associate them with the client. Like that makes a lot of sense to me using my experience, but I was just hoping that like maybe we'd get some interaction from people like Sarah Bronkema, who's a technician, right? Like how, if you don't have any questions, can you tell us how you're going to use any of these programs?
Sorry, just unmuted myself. I was on a phone call with a customer, so I'm just jumping in midway here. Yeah, so I am not super familiar with the CANMaPP software. I have watched a demonstration or two on it. And so I was coming here to kind of just get a refresher. I often am looking for something that is fairly simple for someone to use on their farm, because the only time I'm recommending a producer to start keeping records is when they don't have any sort of basis. So that's generally what I'm looking for when I'm going out on a farm, and recommending a record keeping system is something pretty simple and straightforward. And I don't, like I said, I haven't used the CANMaPP enough to know if it will fit that need or not. But
So did you go to the other two sessions about SAIS and EnviroImpact?
I was not able to attend those, no.
Okay. So when you think about CANMaPP, is that something that you'd recommend it to a client, but would you walk through it with them, do you think?
Yes. Again, depends on the level of the relationship and how much we're working with them. I don't know if that makes sense, but some farms, it's very much I just hand something off to them and they run with it. Versus others, there is more opportunity to help them set up a system that works for them. And in that sense, yes, I think that could work.
Yeah, I totally understand. There were definitely farms where they would just like hand me stuff written on seed bags.
Yep.
And then I'd be like, okay, what do you want me to do with this? And this would be good for me to do that input, because they just weren't gonna do it unless I did it for them. And then others were a lot more capable of creating their own program, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so nutrient management planning, does that fall on technicians to do pretty often, or?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. So I think it depends by district. In my district, in our district and in our partnership with NRCS, I don't do a lot of the nutrient management planning that NRCS brings on. So their customers, they generally handle it on their end. So I could see if this position was more intertwined with NRCS and I was helping out with that nutrient management planning, I could see myself using CANMaPP a lot more, because I do think that it is, yeah, it kind of takes the starkness of the NRCS planning system and kind of makes it more visual for a producer. So,
yeah. Are there any NRCS people on who want to comment on how they might use this in their process?
Just so you get some feedback, I'm over here in the Sioux. We have done a lot of CNMPs. I think maybe more for either technical assistance, or I can really see the MEPs and watershed coordinators using this, where maybe, you know how some landowners are gun shy, or they also don't want, like, they don't necessarily need a $5,000, nutrient management plan through us. Like maybe they're not really looking at, because here we do a lot of waste storage facilities. So, I mean, it is a resource concern here. Most people usually when they do those nutrient management plans, they're looking for assistance for structures that are, have a price tag associated. But I think that there's a lot of MEP people that I can see this being used, and we are about to get a new MEP person, so I'm sure they will be made aware of this, because I know we already have a watershed well, it's a grant position, but it's not really, it's kind of dealing with the watershed. Anyway, long story short, I think the executive director said that they're already aware of that program, so I know that they have knowledge of that and I guess use it. It's kind of a roundabout. I can't really, I could see me doing it for a quick technical assistance side, I guess is the long and short of it is. Except that most of the time they're looking to get a professional written giant binder of, you know.
Yeah, so this is not for CANMaPP, right? This is for a simpler NMP.
Yeah. So, and I mean, the MEP people probably have their feelers out better for that. And so I can see how they would probably be using it more than I would, because they would be assisting on that side. But I did find it really interesting. And I also found it interesting that actually, I don't think any of my coworkers that I was asking was aware of it. So I think that, you know, we should be, because I think on a quick thing, we can plug stuff in, you know.
Right.
I think there's potential.
Yeah, it's pretty new. That's probably why they're not aware of it. That this is something that we've rolled out in like the last year. And part of this training was to raise that awareness, let people know that it's out there. We've done a lot more awareness with the conservation districts. I think we've been to a couple different of their meetings, but not so much with NRCS.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it like on a real small scale with us, like if there maybe, I guess I was hoping maybe somebody else might jump in, because we don't do a lot of nutrient, like most of our nutrient management isn't from application, it's from livestock runoff. And maybe that's why I say like there's a bias. You can take that with a grain of salt, because we don't have row crops, it's all hay field. So, you know, it could be more useful to me, like if I were in an area like that. So I will do that disclaimer.
Yeah, I understand. I'm rolling out like a 319 down here in southern Michigan, and we're going to use CANMaPP as one of the tools that we are going to use with those farmers to do implementation of nutrient management on row crop fields, right? It's
we're in like our own bubble up here. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's although you could use CANMaPP with hay fields pretty successfully, I think, because you can record manure application and crops. So you could still, I mean, because hay fields have to have fertilizer too. So it could be used for that. It just, it's not necessarily built for perennial crops. It's much more lends itself to row crops, but you definitely could use it, don't you think, Glenn, with perennial?
Yeah, it has that flexibility, and and it does have a couple different. It captures different types of manure inputs and composition. So it is a place where you could do that type of record keeping, not just in a row crop environment.
Right. And manure record keeping is something that people don't really like doing at all. So giving them a tool that they could record that in is great.
For sure.
Even if that's the only part they use.
Yeah, and I think maybe even post, like if they did do a CNMP up here, making them aware of it too. The other problem is up here, not only management level, but age, and then also tech savviness, and then also internet connection can sometimes be an issue too. So I can see that as being maybe a barrier. But then I have some who are like really on top of it. So it could go either way.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your input. I appreciate it.
We tried to be the keep it simple, stupid mantra was was key throughout the development of the system. We tried to be mindful of accessibility. We started exploring the different tools that were already out there, and the one that had come up in early discussions with NRCS was MMP, I think out of Purdue, and one of the main criticisms to that was that it was not user friendly. It was not very accessible, and so we were trying to, we were trying to provide an alternative that was more so. Now it's not the work engine that MMP is, but again, we were trying to find that balance of striking utility with accessibility and
for sure. I do want to say, not having seen it before, I thought the interface was, awesome. I think it is pretty intuitive, and I think it is pretty simple. I think a caveman could probably do it. So I do think the ease of getting it, it's just having, like, I have people who don't have, the flip phone is the, that's like their most technology, and they don't want internet stuff. So, those are the kind of people, but I think for the ones that would be interested in it, I think they could pick it up, and not have a problem at all. I did think it was very straightforward.
Anastasia says that she doesn't have a mic that works today. So, yes, Anastasia, it's a tool that you could direct producers to use themselves. We'll send out the videos, the training videos for these, hopefully in the next couple weeks. We have to take some time to edit out some stuff. And then we'll send it out to everybody that signed up for this training. So you can take a look at it there.
So I had a question. So I work on the area staff in Southeast Michigan, and I was really just listening to this more to see what these tools were and if they were applicable to us or how we would be using them. So kind of coming up at it from a different angle. Is it possible, I don't remember from the training, the last training, if say a MEP tech or a DC were to create the file by inputting the job sheets and setting it up, is it shareable with the producer so that later on they can go back in and log their own records into it?
So I'm going to answer, and then Glenn will tell me I'm wrong probably. But so the way I thought about this was that you as a DC could give those files to a producer, and they could upload it under their own name, or they could log in and you could upload it for them. But I think that's the kind of the sticking point there, Glenn, right? Is that those names are personal. The username and password are personal, and they're for that person to use, and they're not really open-ended where there's a backside or a database. That's not what CANMaPP has, right?
Yeah, everything is contained within the user's account. So I've mentioned the next version of this where there's kind of more open discussion and dialogue with NRCS, and part of that design was going to allow a user themselves to grant permission for others to access their files. So if they were to volunteer it, then they could work with a particular technician and say, I'm going to allow them to view my files, review my files, or share files with each other, but it's not presently in the system. So, I think with what the system can do now, what Sarah described would be the best approach there, where perhaps a technician helps the user create an account and imports, walks them through how to import the data into their own system. Or, even though the system, that functionality is not in there now, my contact information's on there, and that's potentially something that we could do in the back end. I can't imagine that it would be a frequent occurrence, but if that's something that we needed to do to try and transfer records manually, that's something that I could do on my end. But again, our hope is to have that as functionality in the next version of the tool.
I mean, I really like the tool. I thought it was a simple solution. So, I mean, I come at it from a former DC perspective where I have the option of using, you know, ArcGIS, MMP. If I want to do it on the job sheet, I can do that. I also know that there's some technicians who've created their own Excel databases to kind of do the calculations themselves. But I see this, that it would fit really well with our MEP techs that may not be GIS savvy, because there are quite a few there. Those who don't like to use MMP, which I don't like to use it either, I'll be honest. But you know, it is much easier. I do see it as a problem though. I know how my producers used to be, and trying to get the producers to actually do all of that on their own per field. I could see, you know, if someone could set it up and then hand it over to them somehow, it might work a little bit better. But I guess then the other option would be a MEP tech sitting down literally at the table, kitchen table, and working with the producer on their computer then, right?
Yeah, that or the assuming a producer doesn't have an account, the technician sets everything up, creates a new account under the farmer's name, and gets everything rolling, and then hands off that information to the producer, the login and the password, and you know, assuming they've gone over with them and taught them what they need to do, or the producers watched the videos that have been produced. But you know, that'd be one way to do it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You know, and if I'd say, and I think we've stressed this in some of the tutorials, and I have to admit I can't recall if it's explicitly on the site itself, but we are sensitive to privacy and anonymity. So the only pieces of identifying information that the system's asking for is just an email address. So there's not asking for anyone's name, not asking for anyone's address, or their phone number. And I you know, part of the reason for that in our discussion with potential users and stakeholder groups was that, you know, farmers are concerned about that. They might be hesitant to have Michigan State University house their nutrient management plan data. And so, you know, if you have those conversations with the producer, I think it's worth, you know, stressing the fact that MSU doesn't know who they are, and you know, all the data would reside on our servers, and it's not, you know, stored on any third-party cloud sources. And so, you know, all we need is an email address, and we'll leave it at that.
All right. Anybody else have anything that they want to share or ask any questions?
I did have one more question.
Sure.
So, I guess kind of rolling this out, you mentioned a little bit, kind of, you know, you've talked to some districts, or was it like a general, like talking to Michigan Association of Conservation Districts, or were there trainings for the districts put on already, or is that pending?
We've done trainings for the Michigan Association of Conservation Districts, and we did a general meeting. First, we did a general meeting, then we did a training in SAIS, but not in CANMaPP because the training takes a little bit longer. But we do have training videos, and Connor's been doing some trainings here and there for different organizations. So it's something that we're actively working on.
Okay, so I mean, I would like to see this get out to more people. Like, I don't know if there's a MEP Tech mail list or something like that where you could send these recordings to. Just something direct. I know you might be talking to MACD as a whole, but usually that's just administrators, and then it's got to filter down into the technicians, and then each individual technician has to pick it up. So maybe just like a widespread emailing, or opportunity to do another one of these training sessions
Yeah.
just for the MEP techs might be good.
You know, I think, you know, maybe Sarah can help with this too. Like if you want to mention it to Joe or to Josh, that it might be great for MEP technicians, then kind of push it from both directions. Then that would probably be more effective than just if I were to be like, hey, we're doing this thing.
Yeah, I know that they are trying to develop their training plans, especially with COVID and transitioning everything online. But I do think that that would be a great opportunity as either a part of one of their other trainings or a standalone training. I do think it would be helpful to get everybody on the same page and for you guys to get the word out that this is an option.
Yeah, my first thought actually, as you're saying that, Sarah, is have you considered pushing it out during one of their annual meetings?
Yeah, we've done that already.
Oh, you have already?
You guys did that in our last annual meeting or whatever it was, conference. Unfortunately, there was a scheduling conflict and all of the MEP technicians had a required session to attend at the same time. So none of us were able to make it to your training.
That is an interesting fact.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Yeah, we'd be happy to do like a one-off meeting for MEP techs if MDARD wants us to do that.
Yeah.
But it's going to take them kind of organizing it because we can't make trainings mandatory, right? So we can only offer them. Is there any other questions that anyone like to ask or any other statements they want to make while we're here? Tim came. I don't know if Tim has any questions. That's really what we're doing here is we're just kind of spitballing questions or suggestions about the program. So now's the chance. Can anybody hear Tim or is this just me?
I cannot.
Okay, I'm like, I see the thing refocusing on him and I'm like, I can't hear him.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, there.
Okay, no, I'm having, issues. And yeah, I honestly don't have anything specific right now, especially because I did come in late and, and obviously missed the best parts of it there. But I would agree, like you said, with Christina's point of anything we can do to probably get more of the information out is going to be helpful. This is probably not widely known necessarily, so.
Right. Is there like a better way to communicate it to NRCS than what we did, which was kind of work through the system and do a training option, or is there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of a good question. I think everybody reacts a little different, but getting it to our ARCs, like Christina, and and maybe having them do the distribution, or for another session like this, or for even the recording of this, would be probably a way to make more of the NRCS people aware of it. I would have thought there'd be more of us on here, but it's bad timing right now too, though, and that's always plays in as far as our workload. But
are you guys having signups right now, or?
Yeah, this is kind of our last week to get everything finished up, so that's
Gotcha.
Everybody's got their head down on that. But yeah, like I said, I think doing something to get it out to every individual and say, hey, this is worth listening to, and I think the ARCs are probably one of the people that we depend on to do that for something like this.
Okay, that's good information. Thanks.
So what, yeah, because when the email came out from the state office, it was just very brief and didn't really explain the tools or really who would be using them. I mean, for me, this was literally, I was learning who was supposed to be using these tools and what they did. So I could take it back to, you know, Southeast Michigan, whoever didn't listen because they didn't pay attention. I can type my email into the chat here, and if you want to send me the recordings or anything like that, I can get them out to our area, and I'll also share them with the other ARCs that weren't on, and then they can decide whether they want to, you know, forward them out to their employees as well. That might be a good way to do it. I know the state office has a lot of things going on, and we're a little bit more kind of the direct link to the field.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Christina. All right, if anybody, this is your last chance to tell us that you hated it or you loved it or ask your questions. Now's the time. Otherwise, I think we'll sign off, and we appreciate you coming today and giving your feedback. So you can leave if you don't have anything else you want to share. Thanks, Sarah.
I'll just add that if any of you access the tool and have additional questions about it, my contact info is listed there on the site. So feel free to reach out to me directly. I'll be happy to answer your questions.